There we go. Wonderful. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for tonight's lecture. My name is Katie Zimmerman from Lake Johnson, and I'll be your host for the evening. As a friendly reminder, this lecture is being recorded, and if you do not want to appear on the recording that will go on our YouTube, please turn your camera off. To reduce feedback, everyone was muted upon entrance. If you have questions during the chat feature, if you have questions during the presentation, please utilize the chat feature, and I will read those questions. I will be keeping track of them, but I'm going to hold them until the end when we begin our Q&A session. With me tonight are Elizabeth and Brittany, Jesse, and Christopher from the Department of Environmental Quality. We're so excited they're here today to talk about water, but I will hand it over to them to continue their introduction and get the presentation started. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks so much, Katie. I really appreciate it. And good evening, everyone. And thanks so much for having us tonight. It's really, really exciting that y'all are interested in water quality in North Carolina. So we appreciate that interest. My name is Chris Ventolaro, as Katie mentioned. I'm one of the two surface water quality standards co-coordinators at the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. And I'm joined by, as Katie mentioned, three of my colleagues tonight. The first is Elizabeth Countess. And Betsy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So, yes, I along with Chris, am the other half of the water quality coordinators team for our branch. So I have been with the state for quite a bit of time, couple decades at this point. So, and have classification as well as standards experience within our program. And with that, I'll hand it over to Brittany.
Hi, my name is Brittany DeArmid. I'm the reclassifications coordinator, and I've been here since September, and I'll pass it on to Jesse.
Hi, I'm Jesse Barnes. I am one of the other classifications coordinators along with Brittany. And I will not be presenting tonight, but I'm just here for support and backup. So.
All right, thanks, guys. And I guess I should have mentioned I'm closing in on my 2-decade mark with the department. So another year and I'll be with 20 years. So, well, tonight we're going to provide to you a short presentation on managing surface water quality in North Carolina. And Betsy, can you advance the slide, please?
Yep.
And, for this presentation, when we talk about managing water quality in North Carolina, from our perspective, we're really focused on the perspective of North Carolina's Surface Water Classifications and Standards Program. So we'll cover a little bit about classifications and standards. We'll talk a little bit about what they are and how they play a crucial role in protecting quality and usability of North Carolina's rivers, lakes, and coastal waters. And we'll touch on some of these other kind of bolded items on this slide, such as the role that the Federal Clean Water Act plays. And we'll talk about water body classifications and best designated uses. Betsy, you can go ahead and advance the slide. We'll be splitting the presentation into 3 different sections. I'll be covering the first to talk about water quality standards and the regulations associated with those standards. Brittany will follow up by talking about water body classifications and designated uses. And then Elizabeth will come in towards the end to kind of give a little kind of a hands-on demonstration of how educators and the public in general can access and share and contribute information to the classifications and standards program. Again, Betsy. All right, so for standards and regulations, now water quality standards is really a massive topic. There's a lot that goes into this, a lot of nuances. So I usually like to start by just kind of asking the question, what are water quality standards? And that's what we'll be doing in the next few slides, what the standards are, what the federal and state regulations are that are associated with water quality standards. And then I'll just give a few examples of recent activities in the standards program. Go ahead, Betsy. All right, so surface water quality standards really they're basically a collection of federal and state laws that serve to protect the quality and uses of the state's surface waters. And they kind of do this by describing the goals for the surface waters. So like what protections we want them to have by defining what those water bodies are used for. And this is called the designated uses. And then as well as the water quality criteria that need to be in place to protect those designated uses. And for North Carolina, we describe both the designated uses and the water quality criteria to protect those uses in North Carolina's water body classifications. And as I mentioned, Brittany is going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. And we're not going to get into the weeds about how criteria developed this presentation. We just don't have the time. But if you're ever interested, feel free to reach out, and I would love to chew your ear off about that. I can talk about this stuff for hours, so feel free to reach out at any time. But, water quality standards, as we saw on the other slide, they play a really crucial role in the protection of North Carolina's surface waters and the management of those waters. One of the things that they do that I think probably people are most familiar with is water quality standards play a role in the development of discharge permit limits for facilities that are discharging their wastewater into surface waters. And this is done through the NPDES program, which is the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permitting program. So permit writers will look at our water quality standards. They'll look at what information facilities provide them on what pollutants are in their waste stream. And then they'll use the standards to calculate a limit that the facilities have to meet before that wastewater can be discharged into the surface water. So that's probably the most kind of well-known application of the surface water standards. But the standards are also used for a number of other different activities. Data is collected, surface water data from streams, rivers, the bays, estuaries, etc., that's collected throughout the state. And that water gets reviewed, analyzed, and assessed to determine if surface waters are actually meeting their designated uses. And you may be aware of this program. This is related to the Clean Water Act 303D Impaired Waters Program. So we have state staff that work on this program. So the standards play a role in helping to determine if those water bodies are meeting their designated uses. And if water bodies are not meeting their designated uses, or if they become listed as being impaired, then the surface water standards play an alternate role in helping to provide targets for restoration activities to address those water quality impairments. So one of the more typical restoration activities are the development of TMDLs, which are total maximum daily loads. And these basically look at all of the pollution sources within the watershed that leads to an impaired water. And then they'll use the standards and some other approaches to kind of set limits to help control what's getting into that impaired water, to hopefully get it off the impaired water list. So those are some of the main ways that the standards are used. And if you notice the last three pictures on the slide there, I wanted to put this in here just to kind of give you a little bit of a sense of how the designated uses and the criteria kind of are associated with one another. Brittany's going to talk about classifications and uses in a minute, but this will kind of give you a little bit of an idea of how these things are tied together. So for that first picture on the left of the duck and the little ducklings, that picture is there to kind of represent the protection of aquatic life, of the aquatic life use. And for the protection of aquatic life, for beryllium, which is a metal that's released from certain manufacturing processes, we would want to make sure that the concentration of beryllium in a stream, let's say, is below 6.5 micrograms per liter to protect various types of aquatic life. Similarly, we have the picture in the middle with the glass of water. That's really there to represent surface waters that are used as a source of drinking water. And this criteria for vinyl chloride, it's more of a human health protection for people that would end up drinking that water. So in this case, you wouldn't want vinyl chloride to be higher than 0.025 micrograms per liter. And then that last picture that shows the man and the child and the dog fishing. And I think the dog looks like he's having the most fun. But this is kind of to represent the actual activity of fishing. One of the requirements of the Clean Water Act is that the waters of the US are, in quotes, fishable, swimmable, which basically means that the waters of the US should support the survival and propagation of aquatic life, but it also protects that water, that the fish that are in that water are safe for humans to consume. So this criteria for phenolic compounds kind of gives a little bit of a different type of criteria requirement. And this isn't related so much to toxicity as the other two are, but more in kind of a aesthetic concern. If there's too much phenolic compounds in the water, that can impact the taste of fish when you eat them. So go ahead, Betsy. All right, so there's a number of things that, we're talking about like what the standards are. The other question that often comes up is, well, why do we have standards in the first place? What are, why do we need these? Why do we have them? And there's two different sets of requirements for why we have standards and what goes into creating standards and how they're applied. There's federal requirements, which are requirements from the Clean Water Act, as well as EPA regulations. And then there's also state requirements, as established in North Carolina General Statute. So per the Clean Water Act, and as well as reflected in EPA regulations associated with the Clean Water Act, states must adopt, review, and update water quality standards on a triennial basis. And states also have oversight of water quality standards programs for state. EPA, also has oversight of water quality programs that states enact. So EPA ultimately has to approve or disapprove states' water quality standards. And if states don't act appropriately in establishing standards, federal EPA, can actually promulgate standards on behalf of the state. Now, North Carolina General Statute establishes that the Environmental Management Commission, or the EMC, will adopt and assign best use classifications to all surface waters in the state, and will adopt water quality criteria applicable to each classification. So it's really the environmental management in North Carolina that actually establishes the state water quality standards. And they do this by adopting, sorry, all the little chats are popping up, so it's blocking the slide. Sorry about that. And they do this, the EMC does this by adopting rules into the North Carolina Administrative Code. So the specific rules in the code that we're most concerned about in relation to surface water quality standards are Title 15A of the North Carolina Administrative Code, subchapter O2B, and sections O100, O200, and O300. All of these rules together comprise North Carolina surface water quality standards. But really the bulk of what we think of when we talk about water quality standards is in section O200. And you can see here all the different rules that go into that. And all of these rules, so as Brittany goes on to talk about some of the different classifications that we have, each of those classifications will be associated with one of these rules that's in here. So for example, when she talks about Class C waters, that's associated with rule O2B, O211, and so on and so forth. So if you ever really want to see the standards in rule, you can find these rules. And I think Betsy will talk maybe a little bit about this later, so I won't go into it. But this is all publicly available information. And then there's various other rules here that talk about different aspects. Oh, you're good. You're good.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're fine. That talk about different aspects of the standards, like exemptions from water quality standards and anti-degradation policy, et cetera. So that's really the bulk of what I was going to talk about. And this last slide for me is to just kind of give you a sense of some of the work that's been recently done and some stuff that we have coming up. So as I mentioned before, the Clean Water Act and EPA regulations require states adopt water quality standards and review and update those standards on a triennial basis. So basically every 3 years, we're in a constant process of reviewing and updating and adopting new things. For the 2020 through 2022 triennial review. One of the updates that we did was that we adopted EPA's updated criteria to protect aquatic life for selenium. Selenium is a very common byproduct of coal-fired power plants. So it was something that was very relevant for North Carolina. And what was interesting about this particular criteria update was that it introduced an option to analyze selenium in fish tissue, as well as in the water column. Typically, when we analyze samples and these criteria are set to take a sample from the water column, analyze that and compare it to, but this provided an option where you could collect fish tissue, and it just gives you a more direct estimation of what the fish are exposed to. For the most recent triennial review, which was the 2023 through 2025 triennial review, the big topic there was that we updated the pathogen indicator for Class B waters, which are waters that are really used for a lot of recreation, like swimming. You have a lot of people recreating in these waters, so understanding the pathogen indicators is really important. So we updated to using E. coli instead of fecal coliforms, which had been used for many, many, many years. But E. coli was the more kind of had the most recent science backing it to estimate the potential for gastrointestinal illness. So this was adopted by the EMC in September of 2025 and approved by EPA in May 2026. And now we're on to the next triennial review. We're on the 2026 through 2028 review. And we're basically in the starting process here. And when we start one of these, we basically start looking at doing the background work, looking at all the different criteria, existing criteria that EPA have recommended. And this one will be looking at various human health, recreation, and aquatic life criteria. So I think that's the last slide for me. So I think I will pass it on to Brittany.
Okay.
And once we get towards the end, I'm happy to answer any questions. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you, Chris. Now that we've defined designated uses and water quality standards, let's discuss these uses and the surface water classifications that are assigned to protect them. So first, I'll summarize how these classifications might impact you, and then I'll go over primary and supplemental classifications that North Carolina utilizes. And lastly, I'll tell you more about special management strategies. Next slide. Thank you. So why should you care about these classifications? Well, not only do these classifications help to protect and maintain water quality, but they also may determine which activities are allowed. If you're a landowner or are looking to become one and there's a property of interest on or adjacent to the water, it's important that you find out what that classification is for that water body, particularly if you're planning on engaging in land activities like developing on land, developing in or over the water, or constructing a new road. This is because several classifications, especially those designed to protect drinking water supplies and high quality waters, have land management strategies or protection rules which regulate land activities that may impact surface water quality. The land management strategies apply to parameters such as types of dischargers allowed and the allowable density of new development activities. A water body's classification, along with other factors such as local government rules and regulations, may determine what land activity is executed. Next slide. Virtually all North Carolina surface waters are classified except for treatment systems like hog lagoons. Classifications are comprised of the criteria and standards required by law for waters and the protection of their uses. Classifications reflect the designated uses that Chris just described and are part of a state's water quality standards program. These uses and furthermore, the classifications may change over time. There are primary classifications for salt waters and fresh waters, and this slide displays the primary classifications for salt waters. So starting with Class SC, Class SC provides basic protection levels for all state surface tidal salt waters. Class SC waters are intended to protect secondary recreation and aquatic life uses. Secondary recreation consists of water activities like boating and wading in which human bodily contact with the water occurs on an unorganized, incidental, or infrequent basis. Class SB protects all SC uses as well as primary recreation. Primary recreation are activities like swimming and water skiing in which that bodily contact with the water occurs on an organized or frequent basis. Class SA protects for all Class SC uses, as well as commercial shellfish harvesting. So one example of a water body that is classified as SA is the Intracoastal Waterway. Next slide, please. This slide summarizes the primary classifications for freshwaters. Class C provides basic protection levels for all surface freshwaters. This classification protects secondary recreation, aquatic life, wildlife, and agricultural uses. Class B protects for all Class C uses as well as primary recreation. Water supply classifications protect waters for all Class C uses as well as for drinking, culinary, and food processing uses. Factors that may determine which of the 5 water supply classifications is assigned include the density of the watershed's development and the types of dischargers in the area. Additionally, water supply 1 through water supply 4 are assigned to public water supplies. Water supply 5, however, is for non-public water supply waters upstream from and draining to a water supply 4, former public water supplies, or waters used by an industry for their employees. The same water supply water quality standards apply to all water supply classifications. However, water supply 1 through water supply 4 classes vary by land management strategy. Class SA and public water supply classes have regulations that cover the lands and the waters, whereas the rest of the primary classifications have regulations that only cover a water body or a segment of the water body, also known as the receiving stream. Jordan Lake and Falls Lake are examples of nearby waters carrying the Class B designation as well as the Water Supply 4 designation. Next slide, please. Waters can have more than one classification at a time. For example, a water body can be Class B and a water supply. All surface waters have at least one primary classification, and they can also have one or more supplemental classifications. Next slide, please. So in addition to the primary classifications, we have supplemental classifications. One example of a supplemental classification would be the high quality waters classification. This is designated to waters whose water quality exceeds state standards. By definition, all water supply 1, water supply 2, and SA waters are high quality waters. Waters classified as outstanding resource waters are also high quality waters by definition, as the ORW classification is a subset of the HQW classification. The outstanding resource waters classification is intended to protect waters with water quality higher than state standards and that are of exceptional significance. So for instance, waters that are part of a state or national park or forest, or waters containing habitat for listed species would be considered of exceptional significance. Another supplemental classification is the trout waters designation, which intends to protect waters for trout propagation and survival, as well as year-round maintenance of stock trout. Next slide, please. Unique wetlands are wetlands that are of exceptional significance. Swamp waters will have naturally different characteristics, such as low velocity, pH, or dissolved oxygen. Nutrient-sensitive waters are those that require additional nutrient management. The regulations for swamp waters only cover the water body or a segment of a water body, whereas the regulations for the rest of the supplemental classifications include those land management strategies we were talking about. An example of a water body carrying the NSW and HQW designation would be the Little River Reservoir in the Neuse River Basin. Next slide, please. Some waters require special protections or conditions. In these cases, a special management strategy may be designated. Special management strategies are the result of case-by-case reviews of reclassification requests. They may provide further protections that the primary and supplemental classifications may not provide. Most waters that have a special management strategy applied have their own set of rules. Some management strategies cover an entire river basin, while others may only cover small water bodies. These special management strategies are often defined in our river basin schedules, our rules, and BIMS, which is a database that we have, by a symbol such as a plus sign, the pound sign, etc. However, the same symbol can vary in meaning depending on which river basin you're looking at. Waters that may require a special management strategy include non-ORW waters that are adjacent to ORW classified waters, as well as waters requiring a nutrient management strategy. So for instance, Falls Lake, Jordan Lake, and Randleman Lake all have special management strategies in place for nutrient management and therefore have separate targeted rules that apply to these waters. And I think that's it for me.
All righty, so I'm going to do the last part of the presentation for tonight. Just wanted to talk to you a bit about how you can access, share, and contribute information regarding water quality standards and classifications. So I'm going to take us to the classification and standards website, where there are separate links for classifications as well as standards, and then run you through a quick exercise on how you would find the classification of any given water body. So this is the website, and if you desire, we can provide a PDF of this presentation, so you don't have to hurry and write down what this website is. And now I'm going to take us to our website. So this is the classification standards website. It has, as I mentioned, and hopefully you can see my cursor to the left here, has a link to the classifications information. It has a link to surface water standards classifications. Our particular branch also covers some other types of standards, such as standards for groundwaters. And so let's first go to the surface water standards website. All righty, so this page covers a lot of what Chris mentioned. You can find the link here to the rules in this second paragraph here that Chris showed. Also goes through in this third paragraph, some of the ways that the standards are used. Goes through some of the regulatory reasons for why we have standards, again, things that Chris covered. And then at the very end here is where information on historical triennial reviews is kept. This is where you would also find, as we develop the package that's for the next triennial review, that's just starting, where you would find that information. And if we go back, here's this main website again. Let's go to this classifications tab, second bullet. All righty, so to go through this page, these first three bullets I'm going to come back to in just a second. But if you go on here, again, some of this information we've presented. There's additional information here as well. I think there's was a question that came across the chat about special designation descriptions. That's discussed in more depth here on this website. All right, so these first three bullets, the map, the rules, the second bullet is the exact same rules that Chris already mentioned and that were also accessible through the standards website. Those are here, and then the river basin schedules. Brittany also mentioned those schedules as well. Tonight, I'm just going to go through the first bullet, the map. Basically, the map is where people generally start, but we always ask that you look at the two other sources of information, which are the second and third bullet on this website, just to confirm and verify that the information that you have is correct. So the schedules are basically lists of waters within each basin. So those lists are provided in two formats. So if you were to click on this link, you would have both of the lists available. One is alphabetical, and the other one is in what we call hydrological order. So the hydrological order being, the first water listed in any particular given river basin. That first water is going to be the headwaters. The last water on that list will be, where it empties out at the end of that basin. So there's the O300 rules that were previously mentioned. There is a O300 rule assigned to each river basin, and that's essentially you will see that reflected in the schedules. All right, so let's go to the map. Bear with me as this takes just a few seconds to load. All righty. So this shows and has labels for all 17 of the state's river basins. You will also see, and by the way, there's this helpful plus and minus here to zoom in and out in the right-hand corner. And you will see over here, if we look in the very left-hand side, this green blob. I don't know how well y'all can see that. This is the property owned by the Eastern Band of the Cherokee Indians. I can zoom in a little more if that helps. And actually, it's not really one blob. It's a one piece. Oops, I'm sorry. I'll just take you over there. There are several little scattered pieces of their territory. So this particular area is not regulated or does not fall under North Carolina's jurisdiction. The Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians have their own water quality standards program that applies to their property. All right. So a couple of things around this left side in the green vertical bar here, I want to make you aware of. So there is the opportunity to print from this website, and there you can, and I'll show you in a second, to put lots of different layers, turn on and turn off lots of different layers of information. So that's one nice way to share it. There's also the ability to export data here. So again, another way to access and share this information. Probably not, and I encourage you to play around with the site. Ask us questions if you end up having some or whatnot. Next thing I think that people really like are the map layers. So again, you could play around with these. I'll show you the water supply watershed layer. I'll turn that one on. Hopefully you can see here, and I'll zoom in a little bit more. There's different colored polygons here. And the different colors represent the different water supply classifications. So for example, this green color right here, hopefully you're seeing my cursor, sort of in the center of the map here. That is a water supply color for a water supply 3 designation. All righty. So, and then the last thing that I'd like to show you here, let me just turn this off for a minute, is this. This is the search button. So this is, where you can put in either an index number, which I'll talk to you about in a minute, what that means and what it is, or just the name of a water body. So let's just put in, let's just put in Lake Johnson. All right. So what first comes up here is under surface water classifications, these are going to be water bodies. Okay. Then once you get under this geocoding service, those can be, let's just say, other Lake Johnsons in different places. Okay. And let me just do this one more time because I messed something up that I wanted to show you. I hit enter and didn't need to. Okay, there we go. So I didn't hit the enter button yet because normally you'd hit the enter button next. So what's interesting that I wanted to bring out here is you want to make sure you are interested in Lake Johnson. not Johnson Lake. So Johnson Lake is in one part of the state and Lake Johnson is in another. So also we have some creeks with the same name in multiple places. So Laurel Creek is notorious. There's like a bazillion Laurel Creeks in North Carolina. So, but again, and we'll find this out in a minute. You could go through and you could look at each of them, but the index number is what will be helpful because you could also put that in here. But here is where you have like anything under the geocoder that could be a combination of a Lake and Johnson road or street or whatnot. So let's go in and hit Lake Johnson like I did before. Okay. All right. So you see a highlighted blue stream here. And just so you know, this dock feature is a really nice feature. You hit it and it puts this square of information over in the right up-hand corner kind of out of your way so that you can better see features. All right, so this highlighted water body is Lake Johnson. Probably the first question that might pop up in your mind is like, well, that's more than the lake. Okay, so I'm seeing other water here. So in our naming system, the classification that's assigned to Lake Johnson applies not only to this water body that connects it to this other unhighlighted blue water, which is Little River, but also that same description applies all the way up to its headwaters, which is actually another impoundment. So you'll see that reflected over here. Hope I'm not going around with the cursor too quickly. In this description box, it says entire lake and connecting to Little River, and that is what's meant by that whole blue highlighted water body. The other key information to take away here, couple pieces is here's that index number I mentioned. That index number is a representation of where that water body falls hydrologically within the basin. So that's a very important number to have. Also, the date is a good thing to have. That shows when that water body last had any classification activity. So, so that's very important. And then, of course, here, what river basin it's in is the Neuse. This View tab right here gets you back to our classifications website. So, so what's important here, the takeaway is, if you can get the index number and that date and the classification, you can take those three pieces of information and confirm them with the other two sources I mentioned. And I'd love to go through those other sources, but I'm getting short on time, so I better get back to the presentation. So I just have a few more slides. All righty, so here's what I just covered in terms of how to figure out a classification of a water body. And, you know, please feel free to contact us if you need any assistance or want verification of any information you may have found out about a water body. That's part of the bread and butter of our jobs. Another question we get quite often is, I can't find the water body. I go on the map, nothing blue highlighted comes up. There's nothing in the rules. There's nothing in the schedules. So we do have a rule specifically that addresses waters like that, that we call unnamed waters. And that is this rule that is cited here in the answer, the 15A and CAC 02B 0301F, which gives you the general rule of thumb that a water body takes on the classification of the named water body that it ultimately flows to. That's the general rule of thumb, albeit there are exceptions in that same rule. That 0301F rule talks about those exceptions as well. And here's my second to last slide. So I thought perhaps you might be interested in how you all and your students can contribute information to the state. And this is what we would call citizen science data. It is extremely valuable data because the state does not have enough staff or funds or resources to do all the monitoring that we would like to do. So that kind of monitoring, you know, can reveal, you know, where are uses occurring, you know, when are they happening? can show, well, for certain parameters, what concentrations are we finding at what times of year and where, and if we're even finding them in the state. All that kind of information helps us to focus our limited resources on further sampling, to follow up that data, and or potentially thinking about rulemaking efforts. So for instance, just 3 examples here. If we get some citizen data in that shows, oh, we're having some issues and some standards where they're being exceeded. Okay, that's where we're going to want to focus in some efforts. Also, it could show areas where, maybe we have an issue with a standard that we might need to update, or maybe we need to propose a new one. Also shows us areas where we have water quality that's better than the state standards. Those are areas we want to protect for that water quality. Or it may show us areas where there are uses that are currently not recognized by the classification for that water body, where we may want to look into doing some rulemaking to update that classification to make it more accurate. So this is my final slide. This is all of us here that are here tonight are on the slide. There's that website one more time. And with that, sorry, we're a few minutes over, but welcome any questions you might have. Oh, I can't hear you, Katrina.
You can't hear me?
Oh, there we go.
Oh,
there we go.
Goodness.
Sorry, you were talking and I didn't hear anything.
Strange. Okay. Well, I unmuted, so it's so peculiar. Anyway, thank you very much, Department of Environmental Quality, for that awesome presentation. I know I learned a lot about surface water quality standards. Let's leave this slide up for just another moment in case people are trying to record that information. But you also mentioned before that you are happy to send these slides out, that I can email them out to all the participants. So I wouldn't stress about it too much. So let's go ahead and close it. Wouldn't mind stopping to share, Elizabeth. That way we can see all your lovely faces more clearly for the next portion of the program. Awesome. There they are. Okay, so now is the time that if you have questions, you can ask them. I'll go ahead and start by asking the questions that are in the chat. And then if you have any additional questions, you can feel free to throw them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask them that way too. It is entirely y'all's preference. Just because it's in my head and not written down, I want to go ahead and ask, you talked about helping to monitor and doing citizen science with water quality. Is there like a thing that you sign up for? Are there particular parameters that you're wanting us to do? Are there like tips that we can request? Anything like that for monitoring?
Yeah, I'll take that. So we have other folks beyond the 4 of us who handle citizen science data and requests for it. That would be the kind of thing where I would need to give you a name and refer you to those folks. But our program itself does not do that. So, but yeah, it's and there are also, I will mention, some groups outside of the division that also engage citizens in collecting citizen science. Thinking of like there's the River Keepers and Riverwatch and various other groups as well. But if folks are interested in that, it would be the kind of thing where I would need a little bit more information as to kind of how folks would want to include that in a plan for teaching. How much time do you have? Maybe what time of year you're looking at. That just a little bit more of information on the interest to guide you to the correct folks within our group. Within our division, who would have their tentacles out to know who does what time of year, where, that kind of thing.
Okay. Well, Elizabeth, then would you mind me putting your email in the follow-up email? And that way people can reach out to you directly
Yes. Yes.
with the kind of citizen science they're wanting to do, and that'll
Yep.
help you to connect them to the right people.
Yep.
Awesome.
That'd be super.
Thank you. That sounds great. Okay, so let me scroll back in the chat for these questions. Here we go. Okay. So Leah wanted to know, does your division work with the state's forest rangers for water quality results?
I guess I could probably take that one on, and Chris, you can also give your perspective. So, I'm going to say that's probably something that our water sciences section staff would know about. So they are our group that goes out and does field work. So I'm not sure quite the slant on the question, but if, for instance, there was an interest or a concern by folks with forestry, we might have our water sciences folks join them. However, there also actually are water quality specialists within the state's Department of Forestry that also would want to be involved for sure. Great question. Chris, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think I would kind of mirror what Betsy said. I mean, I think there's certainly, especially if there are like special projects that come up that are in forested areas, the department in general will try to reach out and get as much help as they can. But I also noticed, I think if this is part of the same question in the chat, it mentioned that if this is Leah, that you were doing a water investigation with the IYE workshop. And if I'm not mistaken, that's another citizen science group, right? That goes out and gets citizens to go out and do some water sampling in the stream. So I think that would kind of fall under more of what Betsy was talking about earlier about different citizen science groups and who in DEQ might be aware of them and how they might interact. So I think that you could probably reach out you could send Betsy an email if you want more info, and we could try to track down some names for people that may use that information. Yeah, I know there's a few of those like Streamwatch and all these kinds of programs where people go out, and I feel like a lot of that data is used in some aspect, but I'm not sure that our group knows exactly who's using it and how. But yeah, it's always good to ask because I'm a big fan of the citizen science work, and I think it's a great, yeah, like Betsy mentioned, a great supplement to what we could try to do officially. But yeah, thanks.
Great, thanks, guys. Leah, I'm having a bit of trouble understanding your next question where you asked about what symbols the bodies of water receive. Oh, everyone's nodding, so maybe you guys understand what she's asking.
It's a cryptic, mysterious language, but Betsy, Brittany, and Jesse are better to answer that question though.
Yeah, Brittany, why don't you, if you want to take that one on, that'd be great. I can help if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's really any good rhyme or reason as to what symbol necessarily gets assigned. It's just making sure that we have distinguishable symbols. So we don't have the same symbol for different things, basically.
Yeah, so basically what happens with the symbols is a request comes in and it doesn't fit neatly into the regulations we have. And what it's determined is that it needs some extra or other type of layer of protection that what we have through just looking at the standard classifications. So it's generally those symbols are reflective of there's extra protection going on. For instance, with ORW waters, we have a lot of well, that's just one example where, so an outstanding resource water has excellent water quality and some outstanding resource. And let's say the excellent water quality we have found to exist kind of in the center of a watershed. Well, often we will try to, depending on the nature of the resource, but try to see if maybe some upstream protection might be warranted. Okay, for instance, like with mussels travel on fish gills. Fish travel. They don't just stay in one nice neat pocket. So we know that the habitat of where those mussels could potentially be is going to be relatively fluid, and it may not, So the idea is if we put some protection upstream, that will help to protect where those mussels might be in the system. That makes sense.
Great. I think you answered her other questions already that are in there. Okay, the last question from Leah. What made you interested in working in water quality?
I just really like the environmental impact, just trying to make a positive impact. Water's like the most important thing for all life, really. So that's kind of, I'm in it for the critters in a way as well. Yeah.
Say I'm similar. I grew up in Long Island, New York, so I was always surrounded by coastal waters and spent a lot of time out in the water and just being outside in general. So I'm an animal lover, especially, like the non-game species that often get overlooked in all the conservation efforts. So that's kind of what's fueled my interest over the years.
I'll just pipe in. Like I got pictures of me in diapers going camping all kinds of places and waterways, and we always managed to have a creek not too far from home, and so yeah, I've just grown up around water, and it's just been always something that that I've enjoyed, and it is definitely one of those getting to be more and more of a hot button issue. So having enough water, having enough clean water, I think that makes our work even more and more purposeful, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm basically the same. I think we all get into this line of work because we love plants and animals and the natural world. And my first job out of college was at a drinking water treatment plant, and then I sort of worked my way up from there, sort of trying to work more directly with the environment and conservation. So that's kind of how I ended up here.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much for answering all of our questions. If you have additional questions for the team, like I mentioned before, I'll be putting Elizabeth's email in the follow-up message that I'll be sending to all of the participants. So you can send your questions to her. The rest of you, let me know if you'd like me to throw your emails in there as well, but otherwise we'll just have Elizabeth direct those questions as she gets them. So yes, if you have additional questions, please send them directly to her. I think that is it. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us tonight. Thank you for our DEQ team for presenting. For those of you who are seeking environmental education credit, I mentioned in the chat, you'll receive a follow-up email later this week. It will have that form in it, as well as Elizabeth's email, the slides, and information about our next presentation, and a link to this recording as well. So if you want to watch it again, you are welcome to enjoy it for all posterity. We hope to see all of you at our next lecture, and I've got the printout right here about who it is and what they're talking about. Oh, this is special. This is Bethany Cutts and Susanna Klingenberg for middle grades. Place Maps, Plots, and Parks, a work in progress reading of the Adventure Atlas. They'll be talking about if 4 third graders can stop a mysterious development project that threatens to change everything. To succeed, they must find their way into the magic of the Adventure Atlas, a map woven from lived experiences, forgotten histories, and local environmental knowledge left out of official plans. So they'll be doing an interactive reading not middle grade, my bad. It's an early grade chapter book. And it's inspired by real parks planning right here in Raleigh. So you'll be able to share your own stories and connections to our greenways, blueways, schoolyards, and civic spaces, and actually help shape the book's thought. So come for the tale and stay for the mystery. We hope to see you guys there as well. And that's it for me. Have a great night, everybody.
Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, good night, all. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye now.